You're listening to Country Rockin' with Jay Griffin.
Who didn't see that coming a mile away, huh?
The home of all things country and southern rock.
It's my great honour to welcome to Country Rockin' a former frontman of the Kentucky Headhunters and one half of Brother Phelps, Lee Phelps. How are you keeping?
Good to see you, Jay.
Thank you for coming on and agreeing to come and speak to me. So it's great stuff. We've had a bit of a time trying to sort it out, and we finally got there. So all things good your end now?
We finally fumbled our way into it, didn't we?
We did. All things sorted your end? Because I know you had some hurricane stuff that you were dealing with down your way.
Yeah, we had a exceptionally active hurricane season down here at the Gulf Coast this year, and so I had about 3 coming in back to back, and one of them was pretty rough, and so we're still catching up from that one. But other than that, this is a beautiful place to live, and so we have to put up with those annoyances every once in a great while. But past that, it's fantastic.
Quite worth it. So how have you coped with all this craziness we've got going on globally at the moment? How have you dealt with that?
Well, I know that my Creator, God the Father, and His Son Jesus loves me and watches over me and protects me and takes care of me, and I rest in that.
So it gives you a bit of comfort.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. So let's get right into the nitty-gritty. Do you come from a musical family? How did it all start for you?
Yeah, as growing up as a kid, my family all played music. My dad, my uncles, my grandmother, everybody played music. And when they'd get together for, say, Thanksgiving, after we'd eat, instruments would all come out, and everybody'd sit around and play. And when I was young, I didn't really know how to play, but I'd sit and watch my dad and my uncle and everybody that was playing guitars. I'd sit and watch their fingers, and then I would, after it was all over, I'd go in by myself and pick up my dad's guitar and try to remember where I saw their fingers, and I'd poke around until I found a chord or two. And that's kind of how it all started for me. And in church as well, I was, learned about singing in church. And so, yeah, from a young child, it was just all around me. And I knew pretty quick what I would like to do in my life. And sure enough, I did.
So you obviously worked with your brother Doug. So did you kind of get into that together as moving on?
Well, he's 7 years younger than I am, so I was gone and out of the house by the time he got old enough to really hang out with, and I was already gone. So so we didn't really do much musically together until about 1982, when I moved to Nashville. He was already there. He was in Nashville, and I moved there, and he and I then started kind of toying with a little musical stuff. And little did I know that while I was gone away from home and he was growing up, that I would I'd play acoustic guitar and sing some songs to send home to my folks, and just so let them hear a little tape of me singing or whatever. And my brother was, unbeknownst to me, he was taking those tapes and learning all those songs word for word. And
really,
when we finally met up in Nashville again after being adults, I started singing the song, and he just jumped right in there and sang every word with me. And I was like, how do you know what I'm going to do? And he's like, I've listened to all your tapes, learned all those tapes that you sent. And so we were singing together, just not in person.
Yeah, that's cool. So he kind of followed your lead then, really?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, he did. I mean, when I was, we shared a room in our little home, and I had my, I started buying Beatle albums and Led Zeppelin albums, and I had my record player, and that was my treasure, And so when I'd leave the house, I'd go, don't you get over there, don't touch my records, don't you touch anything over there. And then as soon as the door shut, he was in there putting the records on and listening to the same music I was. And so I didn't know that, but he confessed later.
So it's a great confession, though, right?
Yeah, it worked out great to get to really, be in the music business with my brother and to sing with him. Oh man, what a wonderful thing that was.
So who are you kind of inspired by growing up musically?
Well, I was, as a small child, I was subject to my parents' influences, which my dad loved Hank Williams and you know, all the old guys back in those days. My dad loved Tennessee Ernie Ford, and he loved Hank Williams, and he loved George Jones, and you know, and all the old cats. And so that was where I cut my teeth. And then it was 1964. I was listening to a radio at my dad's house or my mom's house, and we had an old antique radio. It was antique even in 1964. It was an antique radio, one of those big, huge ones, cabinet radios, and I'd listen to WLS, which would fade in from Chicago into our radio about 6 o'clock at night, and I'd sit there and just listen to the music that they played, and I loved it all. It was great old stuff. And then one night, this song called "I Want to Hold Your Hand," and I just stopped in my tracks. I thought, what is that? And boy, I was smitten by the Beatles, and I knew there was no other thing I wanted to do except do what they did, you know, be successful like that, make music like that.
So that was kind of your main inspiration that led you into progressing further.
I was ate up with the Beatles, man. They were it for me.
So before you got to joining the Headhunters, was you in a few other bands along the way?
Oh yeah, mostly all I did was play music from the time I was 19 years old, and you know, I had to have a job here and there to make a living, but music was always my focus. It was always my focal point. It was what I wanted to do, and I was, you know, bumbled my way through life to try to figure out how to do it and make a living at it and do it as my work, as my career.
Sure. So did you go to Nashville specifically to do that, to go and make it?
Well, I don't know if I considered. I just wanted to be able to make a living at it more so than, you know, I guess I thought of, well, success would be this or success would be that, whatever my thoughts were about it. But I just wanted that to be my livelihood. And it when it happened when that did finally realize that, it was bigger than I ever imagined it would be. And it was a little more scary than what I imagined it to be.
I'm sure. So how did the gig for the Headhunters come about? Because as I understand it, both you and Doug joined at the same time. Is that correct?
Well, I was officially the last member of the band. Doug and Greg Martin, guitar player in the band, they both already had a gig with Ronnie McDowell, which was back in those early 80s. Ronnie was pretty big. He made it pretty big. He wrote a tribute to Elvis called "The King Is Gone." It became a big hit for him, and he hit the road. And through a series of events, my brother ended up playing bass for Ronnie, and then Greg was already playing guitar for Ronnie. And so those two guys went up. Greg's two cousins, Richard and Fred, they went up and put together a little garage band up in Kentucky, just to kind of, you know, do something different besides just playing on stage with Ronnie McDowell every night, and just kind of stretch their legs, put together a little blues band. And at that time I was in Nashville, but I'd kind of got burnt out on the music thing, trying to struggle to make it and try to struggle to figure out what to do with myself. And my brother had formed this little band, and my brother said, "Oh, you know, you got to come up and hear our band. We're playing up in Kentucky, and we got this little house up there in the middle of a field, and you got to come up and hear what we're doing." And I said, "Well, okay, you know, I'll come up with you." And so I went up, and one night I was up there, and my brother was doing a lot of the singing and playing bass, and he was kind of learning a new song, and the bass line was kind of complicated as opposed to singing along with it. And so he was kind of struggling between the bass line and singing. And I said, "Listen, I know that song. I'll sing it for you while you figure out, you know, get your bass line figured out. And then you can, you know, that'll give you a chance to get that in your head." And I got up there and sang through the song while he was learning the bass part. And I mean, it was just a magical moment. And from that point on, you know, Doug said, "You know, I think the band wants you to join the band. They want you to join, you know, with whatever happened the other night was great, and I kept refusing to join, and finally, he talked me into it, and I joined the band. Thought, well, this will be fun. There won't much come of it. Nashville's not going to sign a bunch of long-haired hippies like us, and so I had fun with it. But that'll be about it. And then one thing led to another, and bam! All of a sudden, it took off. So it was the strangest thing.
Sure. My first exposure to the Headhunters was back here in the UK, back in sort of like early, mid to late 90s. We got CMT on through Sky.
Oh.
And I first saw the Headhunters, the video for Lonesome Me. And that's a cracking video. I can't find it anywhere. But it's a great video. And that was my first exposure. I was kind of hooked from there on in.
Oh, cool.
So, it's really cool. And then I believe it was a matter of only a few months, maybe a year or so. Then I saw you as Brother Phelps doing Were You Really Living? And just blew me away, and I thought it was great. So I have to say, I have to confess, I've been a fan since way back when.
Oh, thank you. That's cool, man. That's great. Brother Phelps was fun. I left the Headhunters. It just, I don't know. It just got to be too much for me. We kind of got, when you get up in that status that we were in, you get a lot of people around, a lot of entourage, and a lot of people that you've hired on to do this and that and the other, and it turns into a big mess. It turns into more politics than music, and I'm in there just for the music. I don't care about the politics. I don't care about the awards, and I don't care about all that stuff. So the attention it gets shifted away from the music more and more about the politics and the promotion and the hype and this and that and the other. And so I kind of thought I'm gonna get out of this. I wasn't very happy with it all, and so my brother left with me reluctantly, and we did 2 albums together on Asylum Records, and it was a lot of fun to do that. And because we just really got to focus on each other and sing with each other and write songs, and it was a lot of fun. And then life shifted again for me, and I kind of got completely out of everything after that.
I was going to ask, why was there only 2 albums for Brother Phelps? Because they were both superb albums and both very, very successful in their own right.
Yeah, they were fun to do. The first one, Doug and I went in and we produced it ourselves and had a good time with it all, and wrote, I don't know, a little over half the songs that were on there, and that was a lot of fun. And then Asylum wanted us to do another one, and so at that time, a fellow named Kyle Lenning was the president of Asylum Records, and his claim to fame was that he produced everything that Randy Travis ever did, and Dan Seals and a whole bunch of other artists out there. He's one of the premier producers of Nashville, and he was running the label at that time, and he wanted to get involved and help co-produce the second album. And of course, we brought him on in, and we had a ball, and I'm really, really proud of both those albums to this day. I still like to hear them occasionally.
Sure. And
recall how we did everything and what went on. It was really a cool time.
Anyway, the Wind Blows is a great cover, and I have to say, I could really prefer your version of that. It has a certain edge, a certain vibe about it, and a bit of refreshness to it. It's superb, and the video was great again.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That song was, the way it came about was that Kyle, while we was cutting the album, Kyle said, I've always loved J.J. Cale. He said, there's a song that I always wanted to see a band do that. And he said, I think you guys are the ones that could do that song. And so he played it for us. And I love J.J. Cale too. But I listened to the song, and I was, being in country music, I said, well, Kyle, I love the song, but I said, it's only got one chord and no chorus. I mean, radio's not going to play this song, And he said, yeah, that's probably right. But he said, I love the song, and I think you guys could do a great job of it. So we hopped in there and did it. And as we did it, it became my favorite song on the album. I mean, I was infected by it. And they had already planned to release a different single. And I jumped in and said, no, I want to release Anyway the Wind Blows. Well, and then Kyle said, well, Rick, it's only got one chord and no chorus. I said, yeah, I know, but I said, you know what? I think it's worth the risk. I said, it'll either blow us up through the top or we can get out of this thing. One or the other. So they went along with me and released it as first single and made a video. And, we put everybody on the video was listening to the radio, that we were trying to give radio a hint of, here, play this.
Yeah.
And radio, of course, they called the record label up and go, what are you guys doing? Why are you releasing this song? It's only got one chord and no chorus. But to this day, I love the song. I do. I love the groove.
Yeah, it's got a great groove to it. It really has indeed. And so you're writing when you write. So if you was writing with Doug, how does that take form? Do you come from a lyric, or do you work from a riff or a chord or a harmony? Well, how does that work?
It works all different kinds of ways for me. I don't even consider myself. I mean, I've written several songs, but I don't really even consider myself a songwriter. I know some songwriters that are just astounding, but I'm a guy who every once in a while a song comes out of me, and I, sometimes I'll get a little hook line, and then sometimes I'll hear a little riff in my head or something, and then or there'll be a phrase that pops up, and I'll go, that'd be a good line for a song, or a good title for a song, or whatever, and then I jot a lot of notes down and leave them in a little notebook, and then every once in a while I'll go through it, thumb through it, and go, I think I could do that, or I think I could do this. And I don't know. There's no rhyme or reason how it works for me.
So you put out a few solo albums, a couple of solo albums.
Yeah.
So is there more of that in the pipeline for Ricky?
Well, I am writing a few songs with Kyle, the guy I just mentioned, Kyle Lenning. He and I are writing a few together, and he always has some idea of trying to drag me in the studio to do some songs, and who knows, something may come out of it one day. The last official things I recorded was 2 Christmas songs for a movie soundtrack a couple of years back. And a friend of mine wrote and directed this Christmas movie, called me and asked if I would contribute a couple of songs to the movie soundtrack. And I said, sure, I'd be glad to. And so I put my head to the grindstone to try to write 2 Christmas songs. I was thinking, all the Christmas songs may be written as far as I know, but I did come up with 2 that were original. So I was amazed that I had that in me. And so those 2 songs are the last 2 things that I've got officially out anywhere.
Sure. So your solo stuff, tell me a bit about them, man. What's the inspiration behind them, and the vibe and the feel behind them?
For the Christmas songs?
No, for your solo albums you've done.
Oh well, I put out an album that I called Full Access. And what I was doing back in, I don't know, late 90s, mid to late 90s, I was, digital studios were just kind of starting to be a thing. And so I started putting together this little home studio. And as I was putting it together, I was learning how it worked. And I had these songs that I'd written. And so I was toying with drum tracks, and I was toying with this and toying with that. Experimenting basically. And so I ended up, the Full Access album was filled with just songs that I wrote, and that I played most all the instruments on it, just because I was trying to figure out how the studio worked. So that album is only limited by my lack of talent and all the instruments that I played. So that was how that came about. And then the second one I did, called Signs of the Times, I went to work for this little independent record label in Nashville for a while as a consultant. And, they just wanted me around, guide them through things in the music business. And so I consulted for them, and they, part of my compensation was that they let me go in the studio and cut this album. So I brought in some players went in there and kind of just self-produced this record,
Sure.
which came out to be Signs of the Times. And that's how that one came about.
Yeah, they're both very good. I have listened to both. I've actually played a couple of tracks on my show recently. So, I have put them out there. Very good, very good. So, what was I going to ask you? I was going to ask you, what are your views on the current country music scene in your part of the world?
I don't know that I hadn't heard any country music in a while.
There's an admission.
I've listened to country stations, but I hadn't heard any country music lately. I don't know what happened.
That's a fair comment. That's a fair comment. I just wanted.
Yeah, they say this is a country music station, but when they play their song, I'm like, I don't know what that is. So,
I just wondered who you was kind of listening to at the moment. If there was anybody in specific you was listening to,
there's very few new songs that come into my brain that I go, oh, wow, I really like that. I like some stuff that Chris Stapleton was doing, and Jamie Johnson. Those guys kind of got my attention, especially that song Jamie Johnson did called "In Color." Oh man, that is a fabulous song. And so those two guys, they're two of the guys that kind of, at least got my attention.
Yeah, Chris Stapleton's certainly out there, isn't he? He's superb.
Yeah, great voice and soulful and real, and that's what I like. I like something that's real. So many of the country songs now sung by these guys, they're not country songs, but they try to put on this country accent that's fake, and it all just sounds silly to me.
It's an honest reply. So I like that. Why not?
See, I got nothing to lose now. I can say whatever I want to.
Exactly that. I suppose. So are you kind of semi-retired from the country music scene? Then would you say?
Yeah, I would say that. So I've been down here in Northwest Florida in the Gulf of Mexico for the last 18 or 19 years, and I started playing with a little local band down here 13 years ago, and we got us a little gig and cultivated ourselves a little crowd and just had a great time. We played mostly classic rock stuff, old 60s and 70s, Beatles and the Byrds, and a lot of old harmony songs, Beatles, Byrds, the Turtles, the Mamas and Papas, that kind of stuff, Byrds. And so we did that for the last 13 years until COVID shut everything down. And so that's been, I'd have to say that's been my favorite musical thing that I've ever done.
So would you say that's because the pressure's off? There's no pressure. It's just you go.
No pressure at all. And the guys, everybody in the band was of the same mind and same accord. Nobody was really looking to get to the point where we had to buy a bus and go. We just were happy. We were getting to play music we loved to play, and we had huge crowds every week to come and hear us, and it turned into just a kind of a little family get together, almost like every time we played. Everybody just kept coming, and I think they got to where they just came to see each other more than they did to see us. But it became just a kind of a little phenomenon that took place, and it was most satisfying musical experience I think I've ever had.
Well, that's fantastic to come from what you've currently done in your career to do that, to turn around and say, well, you know what, this is the best thing I've done. From what you've done, it's quite something, really, don't you think?
Yeah, it is, and we did a live recording, which we're working on putting out a little album project from a live recording that we did there, and I got to hear. I just got 10 of the songs. We're going to try to do 18 songs on it, but I got 10 of the songs on a CD that Kyle sent me. He was mixing it in his studio, and it's as good as any live record I've ever heard. I'm really pleased with it.
Well, good. I hope to hear that at some point. Maybe you'll have a listen to that at some point. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll make sure that you get a copy of it somehow or another. I'll make sure you get one. It's great old. It's got great old songs, great old classic rock songs, and and it sounds really good. It's really I'm really pleased with what we got out of it.
I can tell you seem quite fired up about that. You're looking forward to that, aren't you?
Yeah. Our band is called Electric Mullet.
Electric Mullet. I like that. That's a great name.
Yeah, it's not about the haircut. It's about there's a fish down here on Gulf Coast called a mullet, and so
there you go. Yeah.
so we call it electric, and it's LEKTRIC, Electric Mullet.
I like that. Very good. Ricky, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. I've had a blast talking to you, and it's been
great.
It's an absolute pleasure. So thank you for fitting me in and finding the time and say coming on. It's been great. So thanks very much. I'd like to say stay safe. Look after yourself. And
hello, everybody there across the big water.
And I'll keep playing some Headhunters and Brother Phelps and your solo stuff and keep you out there.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much, Jay.
Take care now. Look after yourself.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You're listening to Country Rockin' with Jay Griffin.